Hello everyone, so we will be doing HTTP in detail for this session. So what is HTTP? It is an hypertext transfer protocol. It is for use whenever you are outside and it developed by Team Berners-Lee and is team between 1989 and 1991. And HTTP is a set of rules used for communicating with web servers or the transmitting of web page data, whether that is HTML, images, or videos, etc. So, what is HTTP? As it is a secure protocol or TLS. So, you can say it is secure version of HTTP. HTTPS data is encrypted, so it is not only stop people from seeing the data you are receiving and sending, but it also gives you assurance that you are talking to the correct web server and not some person editing it. Uh, it cannot be decrypted and it cannot be uh, impersonated. You can say it cannot be proxied. Uh, no one can see what you are browsing if you are using HTTPS. No one can decrypt the packets. That's all. What does HTTP stand for? It is hypertext transfer. S is secure. Okay. On the mock web page on the right there is an issue and you have to click on it for the right side of the site. Let's see. Mock web page. There is an issue. Follow click on it and issue that I think not. You should be aware of that. Every time you see a log with a cross marking on it, it will be running on HTTP protocol because if there is an HTTPS, so the certificate will not be valid. So always keep a check on this icon. Now, when we access the website, this okay, requests and responses. When we access the website, your browser will need to make requests to a web server, for assets such as HTML images and download the responses. Before that, you need to tell the browser specifically how and where to access this. So this is where the URL will have. Okay, so this is the URL. Once you use the internet, you have used a URL before. A URL is predominantly an instruction on how to access a resource on the internet. You might never heard about this part because it's not generally used in the day-to-day life, but it is part of a URL where if you're using any FTP service or anything, any other service you can use, or also you can use in basic HTTP authentication. You can use this type of URL where your key will be HTTP and you can use your user password to that protected endpoint. So that long image, W image, so the what you look like. Let's go through every part of the URL. The first one is scheme. That might be a different scheme here, like and then it can be HTTP, it can be it can be what you can say SMB. There are multiple schemes are there. You can use file here if you are accessing anything from your local or any on the server part also. Any remote file you can directly use file to view that particular document or file anything. So the first one is scheme registration on what protocol to use for accessing the resource, which is HTTP, HTTPS, FTP. Okay, and user, some services require authentication to log in. You can put a username and password into the URL to log in. So remember that part. It might be handy for sometime when you use that particular resource with the protected endpoint. Okay, the host, the domain name or IP address of the server you wish to access. Uh, this part basically is your domain name. It might be an IP address. It can be anything. But it points to the target location or the domain that you are accessing to. Okay, the port that you are going to connect to, usually 80 or HTTP. So the port can be anything also. If there might be different ports, might be 80, might be 8080 or 443. So you should use depend on the requirement which port is the service running on. Like if there are some ports, the standard ports you should know about, that 80 for HTTP and 443 for HTTPS, but this cannot be hosted. Sorry, this can be hosted on any port between 1 to 65, 75, and 35. There are total ports, but I think the later ports, the higher ports are not supposed to be standard. So there are some services that run internally or any internal network part. So they can be used in any internal networking, but they are not standard. So you can expect anything under 10,000. Maybe you can expect there's some standard ports. Most of them are covered under 10,000. Okay, so the next part is the path, the file name or the location of the resource you are trying to access. This might be it might be long enough to cover this whole screen. So this is the path. It follows general directory structure, or you can say file structure. Uh, so this is the file path, file name or location, the resource you are trying to access. A query string extra bits of information that can be sent to the requested path. For example, blog ID would tell the blog path that you wish to receive a blog article with the ID of one. So it it can be the very crucial part, or you can guess how the server handle this query string. It is very important because most of the vulnerabilities lies there in HTTP, uh, in the URL, you can say. So always remember, because it can be the input data for any website. So you have to think how the server parses this query string. Okay, here fragment. This is the reference to the location on the actual page requested. This is commonly used for pages with long content and can have a certain part of the page directly linked to it, so it is viewable to the users as soon as they access to the page. What is the fragments? Um, let's say there are some. Uh, I have to go to this part. I have to go to this line only when I open this URL. So I have to mention it in my URL to be fragmented. So it will directly jump to this location without scrolling or without using the scroll bar or anything. It will directly jump out to this location or uh, automatically. So that's why this is the fragment and refers to a location on the actual page requested. So this is used for pages with a long content and can have a certain part of the page directly linked to it. So it is available to the user as soon as they access the page. Uh, that's the fragment. Making a request. It's possible to make a request to a web server with just one line. That is get this one. So you can use it on NC Netcat. If you want to connect to any of the domain or any of the IP addresses, you can directly use Netcat and send a raw request to only get slash HTTP 1.1, and it will show you the result. Uh, but the request method and a page being requested, the second part, and the HTTP protocol version is used. So much rich and expensive, you need to send other data as well. This other data is sent in what is called headers, where headers contain extra information to give to web servers you are communicating with. But we'll go more into this in the header task. Okay, so this is the example request. It is the request method. First, I can say Okay, line one. This request is sending get method. More on this line HTTP method tasks. So request on the home page. This is the home page with the telling the web server we are using HTTP protocol version 1.1. There are some several protocols we can also there we can also learn about what are the differences and how they are different from the and what are some underlying vulnerabilities in some of the protocols or protocol versions. So we can we can see on the net if you want. Let's go to the second line. That is host and tryhackme.com. It will tell the web server we want the website tryhackme.com. So it parses the host as you can say there might be several websites on a on a single IP address. So the host, so the server will fetch uh, the website related to tryhackme.com using the source host URL. Basically, it is used for that. But let's go to another line. Third, that is user agent. So we will tell the web server we are using the Firefox version 8.7 browser. So it tells from where the request is coming, like which browser is requesting or what program is requesting. If you are using request model from Python, there will be something request from Python request, something like that. I don't remember right now. It will be there user agent. So it will tell the server that the request came from yeah, Firefox or if you're using anything else, so it will determine from where the request is being because it is important sometime like I can give you a scenario um uh, if I'm searching if I'm uh, if I want to download a Windows ISO file so if I'm uh, using it from a uh, Windows browser like if I'm using it from the Google Chrome or anything. So it will redirect me to directly install it or do not give me a direct link to download the ISO file. But if I'm using it from Mac or Linux, so it will give me the direct ISO uh, file to download because they know that we cannot directly install it into the Mac or into the Linux. So they the server knows it by determining the user agent. So we can basically change the user agent as per our request, as per our what do we want. And in line 4, referral. So we are telling the web server that the web page that referred us to this one is tryhackme.com, and it means by that it is the request is coming from this domain. But not this domain. Uh, this domain is referred, so the previous request would be from this one. Um, Line 5. HTTP request always end with a blank line to inform the web server that request has finished. It's the black line. The request is finished. Example response. So response would be let's go in deep in what it is telling. Depend on each line of the response. I think that line one HTTP 1.1 is the version of the HTTP protocol. Is the HTTP protocol the server is using and then followed by the HTTP status code. In this case, 200 OK, which tells us the request is completed successfully. There are some response codes you need to learn about, but 200 is the okay. 200 okay is that the request is successfully completed. The thing went fine. Okay, the second line is the server indication, the which server is in the backend. So that tells the web server software and version number. That is Nginx 1.15.8. So line third is the current date, the time and time of the web server. It depends on server to server. Sometimes it will not be there. The different headers are it depends on some server to server whether they are configured to give the response in it or not. So the current date, this is the current date. time. Line 4 is the content type header. Head tells the client what sort of information is going to be sent, such as HTML, images, videos, PDF, XML. So this part is being rendered by the browser, and uh, the browser will use that if there is some encoding or there comma char set equal to something. So the browser will treat it the content coming from that server like that only. So the server is telling that the content is HTML content, so the browser will treat it as an HTML content. Like content length tells the client how long the response is. This way we can confirm no data is missing. Sometimes there are some checks on the content length and content type, so there are some attacks we will read in the future. HTTP response contains a blank line to confirm the end of the HTTP response. So this is the here all the response headers ends. Response header ends. From there it starts Tryhackme, and this one is the information that has been requested in this instance, the home page. So the information that is requested will come along after blank line. So what HTTP protocol is being used as an app in the above example? So protocol is used in HTTP 1.1. What response header tell the browser how much data to expect? Content length. HTTP methods. This is very important part. Okay, HTTP methods are a way for the client to show their intended action when making an HTTP request. So we'll jump on to the get request is for getting information. That simple. Getting information from a web server. But remember, we can also send something using get request when we were talking about the URL part. Where is the URL part? Uh, yeah, so we can also send the data using query string or extra bits of information that can be sent to the requested path. For example, log ID contributor. So we can also send requests using get request. But that but the send data would be, should be limited to some bytes. I don't remember exact data, but this we can do that. Post request. So this is used for submitting data to the web server and potentially creating new records. Submitting data. So mostly post request is being used to send something to web server or anything to create a new record or anything. The post request is being used. Or put request. This is used for submitting data to the server to update the information. Okay. There are some APIs use patch request. So what is the difference between a patch request and a put request? So that difference is that put request update the information completely, like it wipes the previous data and it completely rewrite the new data. Uh, but in the patch request, the requested data is only updated. Like there is a full data, so the only the some part of the data gets updated, and while input everything gets updated. So this is the difference. You can also read it online. So, but the force equation delete request. This is used for deleting anything on the web server. So, what method would be used to create new user account? To create new user account, this will be post request. What method would be used to update your email address? That would be put. What method would be used to remove a picture to your account? That would be delete. You used to view and news article is get. Use everything. HTTP status codes. In the previous test, you learned when HTTP server respond. The first line always contains the status code informing the client of the outcome of the request and also potentially how to handle it. These status codes can be broken down to five different ranges: 100 to 190 information responses. These are sent to tell the client the first part of the request has been accepted, and they should continue sending the rest of their requests. These codes are no longer very common. Okay, 200, you can say 20x, 2x. So this range of status code used to tell the client the request was successful. And 300 is basically the redirection. Yeah, you should rewrite a client request for another resource. This can be a different web page, different website altogether. 4 is client's error. You should inform the client there that there was an error with the request. 500 is that the server errors. This is the errors happening on the server side. Really get quite a major problem with the server handling the request. Common HTTP status codes you should know. 200, okay, completed successfully. 201 created a resource has been created. For example, user new blog post. 301 moved permanently, or sends client browser to a new website, or tells such engines that the page has moved somewhere else and to look there instead. This is a temporary redirection, so not a permanent redirect, but as the name suggests, it is only temporary change. It may be changed again in the near future. 400 bad request. This tells the request that something was either wrong or missing in the request. If you tamper with the request, anything different that's not being expected by a web server, so it will give you the bad request. 401 not authorized. You are not currently allowed. You are not allowed to view that request until you have authorized of the application, most commonly with the username and password, or if you have any authorization token. So you are not authorized to view that part of the web server. 403 forbidden. You do not have permission to view this resource whether you are logged in or not. Forbidden, you do not have the rights whether are logged in, whether you have authorized token or not. You are not allowed to view that part of that web server. Method not allowed. The resource does not allow this method request. For example, if you send get request of the resource to create account, Windows expecting a post request instead. Okay, so there are some requests that are allowed. You can also use options to check which requests the server allowed. 404 page not found. The page resource you requested does not exist. 500 internal service error. The server has returned some kind of error which you request that it doesn't know how to handle properly. 503 service is unavailable. The server cannot handle your request, or it either overloaded or down for maintenance. Click view site button on the right side. See what some of these HTTP status messages look like in a browser. See what response code might you receive if you have created a new user or blog post article. New user, if I'm created new user, it's would be 201 created. What response code you might you receive if you have tried to access a page that doesn't exist? 404. What response code might you receive if the web server cannot access its database and the application crashes? The application is crashed and can the web server cannot access the database. It means that there has some internal problem, internal service error. That would be 500. So God answer is wrong. It seems that if the web server cannot access your database and the application crashes, this server cannot handle your request and is overloaded down for maintenance. Service unavailable. 503. Is this service unavailable? 204. Okay, what response code might you receive if you try to edit your profile without logging in first? So I'm not authorized for that. 401. Headers. Now, headers are additional bits of data you can send to web server when making requests. Although no headers are usually required when making HTTP requests, you will find it difficult to view website properly. So common request headers are host, Some web servers host multiple websites, so by providing the host header, you can tell it which one you require. Otherwise, you will just use the default website for the server. User agent, this is your browser software and version number telling the browser web server your browser software helps it format the website properly for your browser and also some elements of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS are only available in certain browsers. So it determines which user agent is being used so that it can warn you that certain certain tech will not be parse will not be completely shown to you. Will be shown. Or content length. So when sending data to a web server, such as in form, the content length tells the web server how much data expect the web request. So the server cannot and can ensure it isn't missing any data. Accept encoding tells the web server what types of compression methods the browser supports so the data can be made smaller for transmitting over the internet. Data sent to server to help remember your information. See cookies task for more information. Okay. Common response headers. Set cookie. Information to store which gets sent back to the web server on each request. See cookies task for more information. Cache control. How long to store the content of the response in the browser's cache before it requests it again. Anytime. This tells the client cache control to store the content of the response in browser's cache before it requests it again. Uh, There are some attacks referring to this cache control. We will find it later. Content type. This tells the client what type of data is being returned. That is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so that the browser then knows how to process the data. Content encoding. What method has been used to compress the data to make it smaller? Right? Like it is accept encoding and content encoding. Once you are sending any data, what type of compression method the browser supports, and what method being used to compress the data so that you can uh, use it to completely recover all the data. So what it does tells the web server and whether is being used. User agent. What it does tell the browser what type of data is being returned. What type of data is content type, and what header tells us which website is being restricted. It is host header, and cookies. The most important part is that cookies because it make the sessions or it basically logs what you are doing on the internet and everything. So that is data is stored on the cookie. So you have had a cookie before. They are a small piece of data that is stored on your computer. Cookies are saved when you receive a set cookie header from a web server. Then every further request you make, you will send the cookie header back to the web server because TP is stateless. Don't that means it doesn't keep track of your previous requests. Cookies can be used to remind the web server who you are, some personal settings for the websites, or whether you have been to the website before. Let's take a look at this example HTTP request. So this is a basic example of the HTTP request. So I have made a request and the client requests the web page from HTTP cookies.thm. And if okay, so the request is received is like this, some HTML data. Server responds back with a simple web page with a form asking for the user's name. It's asking for the user's name. So we send the username using post data. Client send back the form with the name set to them. The server respond that from now onwards the name would be Adam. So it said so now every time the cookie will be set and the date next time I further request the client send the cookie data back to the server. The server then sees the cookie data and instead of displaying the format, displays a welcome back message instead. Means I'm used for many purposes, but the most used for website authentication. The key value won't usually be clear text string where you can see the password, but a token unique secret code that isn't easily humanly guessable. Viewing your cookies, you can easily view what cookies your browser is sending to the website by using the developers tools your browser. If you're not sure how to get the developers to the browser, click on the view site button. I'm not going to do that. You can see this is inspect or views how to guide you. Let's open this. This is the developer tool. Okay, which header is used to save cookies to your computer?